Hey everyone, it's Susan Pierce Thompson and welcome to the Wednesday vlog. I am excited to be with you today. It is still the Baha'i fast, and it's also a time of year when other religions propose fasting. It's the Lent season, etc. As a matter of fact, every major religion in the world, to my knowledge, I don't know everything about every major religion in the world, but religions advocate fasting as part of their spiritual discipline. And I want to talk to you today about fasting because if you do bright line eating, you might think, well, what do I do about this fasting thing? I mean, I'm supposed to do 3 meals a day, nothing in between, and I'm never, ever supposed to skip meals. So how does fasting play into that? So today in this vlog, I want to talk about the different kinds of fasting and just give you some practical tips for how to implement fasting if you do bright line eating. So there might be more kinds of fasting, but my vision of the landscape right now is that there's 3 kinds of fasting. One is a religious fast, and there's lots of different forms of that. One is a total water fast, like you have nothing but water for days, even some people for weeks and months. And then the other is called intermittent fasting, and it's getting really popular these days. So let's go through these one at a time. So religious fasting is what I'm doing right now. And last week I told you that I would talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts of fasting. And in Christianity they do it, in Judaism they do it, in Islam they do it, and in all sorts of religions fasting is part of what you do. And the purposes are many, but generally speaking, detachment from the material world, getting in touch with the suffering of all beings, and creating space, really space for the rearrangement of that inner landscape so that real spiritual growth can take place. Letting go of the crutches that we use to get through life so that we don't have to do the real work we have to do, right? So that's sort of the purpose. And interestingly, it said that fasting and prayer are the sun and the moon of religion. In the heavens of religion, fasting and prayer are the sun and moon. And fasting is the sun, and prayer is the moon. So if you imagine the importance of prayer in a religious person's life, that's the moon, and fasting is the sun. So super important. So I am not here at all to tell you not to do your religious fast. If religious fasting means something to you, you can absolutely do it with bright line eating. The form that I'm most familiar with is what we do in the Baha'i faith. It's also the same form they do in Islam, which is like Ramadan, which is sunrise to sunset fasting. What I have come to prefer in sunrise to sunset fasting is loading up on breakfast. So I sort of do the equivalent of taking everything I would eat at lunch and I put it at breakfast. I typically convert it to breakfast foods because I personally don't want to eat Brussels sprouts for breakfast. I know some people do and they love it, but I just basically double or even 2.5 times my breakfast. That's what I do. And then at dinner, I personally have found that I like to eat even a slightly smaller dinner than I normally would, mainly because my metabolism is shut down all day, and if I'm not eating till after sunset, it usually makes for a much later dinner than I would prefer to have. And for me, it often feels like I'm going to bed right on top of dinner, which I don't like to go to bed with a full stomach, personally. So, you can titrate this for your own preference, but that's what I do. I know in a lot of Christian churches around here locally, there's a different type of fast that's proposed, which is a don't eat dinner the night before and then don't eat breakfast or lunch the next day. And if you're going to do that, I would probably do the same thing, like have a really big lunch before you're about to start your fast and then go through your fast and then resume with lunch the next day. That's what I would do there. Whatever your flavor of fast is, it's doable with bright line eating, absolutely. And it might just take a few times around the block to kind of figure out the food plan that works best for you with your religious fast. So the second type of fast is very different. It's total fasting, where you're having nothing but water. And here, I just want to give you some resources so you can look into this. Before, I think, early 2014 rather, I knew nothing about total water fasting. I didn't know that it had tremendous medical benefits, but actually it does. It's a very well-researched subject. total water fasting has been shown to help or completely alleviate conditions as wide-ranging as appendicitis, epilepsy, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, immune diseases, autoimmune diseases, inflammatory conditions, etc. So, whether you're suffering from rheumatoid arthritis or chronic fatigue or whatever it may be, you might find that total water fasting helps a lot. Now, if you're going to do it, you got to be medically supervised. I mean, you don't have to, it's whatever, it's a free world, right? You can stop eating if you want to. I recommend that you be medically supervised. And in North America, the place that I recommend is called the True North Health Center. It's in Santa Rosa, California. I was invited by the head doctor there, Dr. Alan Goldhammer, to come visit the facility in August of 2014, and I was pretty blown away. It's amazing what they're doing there, and they are collecting data. They are doing the research to show the efficacy of what they do there. So if you're interested in the medical benefits of total fasting, I highly recommend you contact the True North Health Center and check out what they got going on there. It's an amazing facility. I would do it. I'm if you know me well, you kind of know like not eating for 30 days is like, I'm kind of, I want to climb Mount Everest. I want to run I ran a marathon, got a PhD. There's a lot of things I did just cause, and like not eating for 30 days sounds like something I would want to do. I just don't have the, motivation to do it because I'm not achy or suffering. But I tell you, if I come down with rheumatoid arthritis, I'm going to True North and I'm not eating anything for 30 days. And just to say I did and see what happens. But given that I'm, healthy as a horse and I got a busy life and 3 kids, I can't quite justify going off to True North and not eating for a long time. It doesn't have to be 30 days. You can do a few days. You can do it however you want. But anyway, contact them. It's a cool place. So the other type of fasting is intermittent fasting. And I get emails about this all the time. Susan, what do you think about intermittent fasting? And I got to tell you that the research is a little sporadic, but what research there is does show benefits. And it's a little like exercise where there's so many different ways to do it that it's kind of hard to pinpoint a specific methodology and make broad claims. But what I will say is that there's lots and lots and lots of ways to do intermittent fasting. There's a eat one day and don't eat the next, eat one day and don't eat the next. There's like an alternating eating. There's a 5-2 method where you eat 5 days a week and you don't eat the other 2. And then I think the most common is just that you condense your eating during the day into a narrower window of time, and then you fast for the rest of the hours. So for example, if you ate 1 meal a day, you'd be fasting for 23 hours a day. I think the most common form is to eat 2 or 3 meals, but to squish them together. And then you're fasting for maybe 14 hours or 16 hours a day. Now I want to say this isn't that different than what we do in Bright Line Eating. I think a lot of the benefits accrue from 2 principles: that when you digest your food all the way through before you eat more food, the body's much happier with you. And then here I am fasting, and it's late in the day, so let me think of what the other thing is. When you digest your food all the way through, and I forget what the other thing was. Okay, so, but generally speaking, fasting like that can be beneficial because you're giving your body time to recover. So 3 meals a day with nothing in between is like intermittent fasting. Let's imagine that you eat breakfast at 7, lunch at noon, and dinner at 5. You're fasting for 14 hours. So you could do Bright Line Eating and just go, oh wait, I'm doing intermittent fasting. Let's imagine you wanted to be a 16-hour intermittent faster. Eat your breakfast at 8 and your dinner at 4. Notice that the Bright Line Eating recommendations are to space your meals 4 to 6 hours apart. You're doing that. Breakfast at 8, lunch at noon, and dinner at 4 is spacing your meals 4 hours apart and fasting for 16 hours a day. Oh, I remember the other thing. it was that there is research that shows that caloric restriction is just good for you, right? That there's that famous study with rats who live longer because you reduce the amount, when you reduce the amount of calories that they eat, like cutting back their calories to like 85% or 80% of what they were eating, and suddenly they live a lot longer. And there's some research to show that that works with humans too. So those are the two ideas behind intermittent fasting: is digest all your food before you're going to eat more, and just eat fewer calories overall, both of which work just fine with bright line eating. So because I've been doing bright line eating for so long, I haven't really ever looked into intermittent fasting because I've been kind of off the market for a long time in terms of looking for the latest thing to do, so to speak. So this has kind of been all the rage recently, so I haven't really looked into intermittent fasting. But if you want to do it, I think it's very easy to integrate with bright line eating. I don't see any conflicts there at all. As a matter of fact, the principles are very similar. And we'll kind of come full circle here and just say that when I first started bright line eating, I was told, like, you're already fasting. You don't need to fast more because you're not eating at all between meals, and you have this long span of time between dinner and breakfast. So really, you're already fasting. There's no need to do any additional fasting. So I suspect that if you're out there and you do bright line eating, you've never really thought of what you do as fasting. Maybe you have. Maybe those hours in between meals have definitely felt like fasting. Definitely possible. But I just wanted to throw that out there because there's ways of kind of looking at research benefits, under headings like intermittent fasting that maybe you never considered actually apply to you. Food for thought. So that is the Wednesday vlog. And if you have a topic you'd like me to address in the Wednesday vlog, just send it in. I'm at susan@brightlineeating.com. Go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel. You might have to click through on the video to get to YouTube and then subscribe to my YouTube channel. Scroll down, leave me a comment, give me some kind of reaction, thumbs up, thumbs down, I don't care. I would love to hear from you, and I will see you next week. Have a good one.